Welcome to session Sanchin Kata, History, Evolution and Bunkai. My name is Edvard Šefer. I started learning karate 54 years ago. 15 years ago, when I became aware about kata's practical value, I founded the monk-style martial arts school of self-defense, based on kata forms and the Tang Shou primal Chinese martial art. I obtained the PhD degree for the kata research. Background. Wojciech Scinarski and Joanna Skovron wrote, self-defense are technical and tactical skills to avoid or fend off an attack and neutralize the attacker. Sanchin Kata is like all other kata a self-defense training forum. Common spread belief is that the author of Sanchin Kata was a Buddhist monk Bodhidharma, who by the legend lived somewhere between 5th and 7th century. There are no written documents and only legends were preserved. Therefore, we will most probably never know who and when created Sanchin Kata. Problem. Sanchin Kata nowadays exists in a huge number of versions, and from this arises the problem and the question of which version is actually correct or the original one, and if any at all. The problem is that people tend to exaggerate with everything, and kata is no exception. At the beginning, these exaggerations normally led to progress, but history has shown that the exaggerations always go out of line and end up spoiling good ideas. I have seen Sanchin Kata performed with many exaggerations such as a yoga style with deep breathing that makes the practitioner relaxed as Sudarshan Kriya, a bodybuilding style where practitioners carry heavy barrels in slow motion, under cold shower and standing in cold water, performing with an open palm or fist and the palm. Some call this kata mother kata, some call it father kata or iron shirt kata. Some practitioners contract the muscles and are hit hard by their masters to check if the muscles are properly tightened. All of the above is partially included in Sanchin Kata, where the most important thing is the knowledge of constant changing and transition from fast and soft to slow and strong in a pulsating manner, which is also the hardest thing to learn. Method. Like Descartes, I was doubting everything and considering true only that which is unquestionable. Michel Certeau pointed out the importance of researchers not staying in close community. Therefore, I acted like a Ronin, who listened at all Rashomon truths, like in a movie made by Akira Kurosawa in 1950, where the truth depends on observer's standing position. I followed the footsteps of British historian Keith Jenkins and acted as disrespectful researcher of the past, behaving like an innocent kid from the Andersen fairy tale where everybody is admiring the emperor's new clothes and only the child dares to yell truth. The emperor is naked. I used Chinese and Japanese history to be able to understand symbolic ancient texts. Acupressure point fighting method to understand where kick or punch should take the place. Kinesiology, anatomy and psychology to understand human body and responses. And most important, indisputed laws of mathematics and physics. Newton's laws, classical mechanics, vector analysis, and the fulcrum with leverage, to understand how the weaker can beat the stronger. Results. The most important thing is the awareness that in kata nothing is as it seems at first glance. Kata was created in a hidden way to protect valuable knowledge from non-invited observers. The same goes with the rare ancient books about self-defense. The most known is Bubishi, done by several editors based on notes of many unknown Chinese students who studied in Fujian around 1850. And the older, less known Qinshao Hinshu from 1561, written by famous Chinese general Qi Jiguang, which contains a very important sentence. These techniques are for those who cannot be strong, and thereby defines that these are self-defense techniques. I put all Rashomon truths I found in different versions of Sanchin Kata together in the form of my elephant, for which I think it could be close to original. I searched for the right answers to the findings of blindfolded researchers, as the spear is the tusk and rope is the tail of the elephant. On one side there is a sport with Agon and Ludus, where same category fighters fight under rules that protect them from serious injuries. And the opposite side is real life with no rules, where a girl must defend herself from the bigger attacker. She cannot fight as a sportsman, because she is too small and cannot harm the attacker. But she can use Sanchin Kata techniques to protect herself. How? We will see later. When someone watches the performance of kata or its defensive techniques, he must be aware that there is no perfection in them, as in the case of competitive tournaments, but that there are always deviations, because these are life situations that are different each time and depend on ratio of size and weight and the distance of attacker from the attacked, and many other things. Sanchin Kata. Sanchin Kata Chinese name is 3 wars and Japanese 3 battles. Understanding starts with 2500 years old Sun Tzu Art of War wisdom. In ancient times, an experienced warrior first assured his own invulnerability and then waited for the enemy's vulnerability, and the skilled warrior attacks so that the enemy cannot defend himself and defends himself so that the enemy cannot attack. Knowing these two wisdoms, it is obvious that a war or battle starts with defense. From this point further, it is much easier to understand Sanchin Kata, which has 3 defenses. First, Sun and the Moon hand form with stepping into attacker's space. Second, holding the shoulder traps, as it was explained by General Qi Jiguang in his Jihiao Hinshu. And the third, Sun and the Moon hand form with stepping back. The sad fact is that the violence and causing the pain are very strongly rooted in the human psyche, and out of it desire to hit the opponent is so great, and that's why sport explanations of Sanchin Kata have punching with one hand or both hands. In Sanchin Kata, the practitioner stands in triangle. This is the most stable stance, where one leg takes care about stability in direction front-back and other leg in direction left-right. People with problems in the development of motor and balance skills use the same principle when walking. Therefore, I strongly agree with Kantaro Matsui that Budo practitioners as a whole can gain a lot from Budo for the disabled. Vector analysis, first described by Willard Gibbs and Edwin Bidwell Wilson in the book Vector Analysis, dated 1901, help us to understand what ancient masters created. The attacked person must divert the punch or weapon to pass by, what can only be done by turning the body and the foot. This shows how the Sanchin stance was born not out of need for stability, but out of need for attack diverting. This is why this is iron shirt kata. Handwork starts with action known in its rough form already in 17th century by the European wrestler Nicolaus Peter. A much more elaborate implementation of first defense starts with Sun and the Moon hand, which is a universal key that explains self-defense moves present in Sanchin and other kata forms. I found Sun and the Moon hand on Bubishi book poster number 41, which have a base in Mount the Dragon backwards from Qinshao Hinshu number 6 poster. Sun and the Moon hand is followed by instruction from Bubishi poster number 14, which details can be found in Method of Pressure Point Fighting, where George Dillman explains. Pressurizing H2 and LI 13 point makes the elbow bend and causes the pain. Second defense. When holding the shoulder traps, girl uses her weight, kinesiology, and lever, not hand power, to put the attacker on his knees. Third defense. The girl cannot block an attacker twice her size, but she can, with a little effort, redirect his energy to pass by, as shown by the vectors on the drawing. The girl is doing same as the water wheel is following the water stream. Conclusion. The main conclusion is Sanchin Kata contains only 3 defenses and no attack with fist or foot. Thank you for your attention. For discussion, I am reachable on safer@seoul.net.